Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, set up a month ago, has been inaugurated. At the inauguration in the State House, President Bola Tinubu says this is part of steps to revamp the country's economy and a means to improve the lives of Nigerians. State House correspondent Musbaut and Wahab reports.
Largest on the continent, yet at a low ebb of its potential, Nigeria's economy is paradoxically struggling for survival amidst a soaring debt profile.
Debt service begin to consume an ever greater portion of government already meager revenues.
Here is an administration that promises to end the vicious cycle. Apart from the earlier steps such as subsidy removal and harmonization of the multiple exchange rates, all aimed at encouraging investments and economic growth, the current government is empowering this committee to inject new ideas into its economy. The mandate is on a tripod of fiscal governance, tax reforms, and growth facilitation.
Our target is to improve Nigeria's revenue profile while making the business environment more conducive and internationally competitive. Our aim is to transform the tax system to support sustainable development, while at the same time achieving a minimum of 18% tax to GDP ratio within the next 3 years. In order to ensure seamless implementation, the committee shall be empowered not merely to make recommendations, but also provide practical support in the execution and delivery of the recommended changes.
Multiplicity of revenue collection agencies, high cost of revenue administration, and excessive burden of compliance on ordinary taxpayers, among others, are also areas of consideration.
We cannot continue to tax the poor party when we should be promoting prosperity. We should no longer tax investment or production, but focus on returns, incomes, and consumption. This government will tax the fruit, but not the seeds.
And the committee, chaired by a world-class expert on economic matters, Taiwo Oyedele, with members from across public and private sectors, promises a comprehensive and long-term focused approach.
The burden of tax falls heavily on those who comply, while those who evade often get away with little or no consequences. We need to change that.
On the account of the work the committee set out to do, our business's environment will become more conducive for local and foreign investments, wealth will be created, and our country will be better for it.
The committee has 1 full year to carry out this assignment that promises to reshape the revenue generation profile of the country, but with a clear mandate not to increase the tax burden on Nigerians. From the State House, Musbaut and Wahab, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms has appealed to Nigerians and other relevant stakeholders to support the committee to succeed for rapid economic growth. The committee made the appeal while briefing State House correspondents after the inauguration.
Everybody knows that it's one country, it's our nation, and for it to work, we need that coordination. So one of the pillars of the assignment of the committee is the fiscal governance. That fiscal governance also says we have to ensure we have coordination in terms of within the federal government itself, and also horizontally or vertically, I should say, with sub-nationals, particularly state, but also local government. And that's exactly what we hope to be able to do.
Paying tax is enlightened self-interest, because that's the only way you can guarantee infrastructure. That's the only way you can guarantee that even the people that work for you in business places have the capacity to live a life that is livable. So on behalf of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the private sector, we'd like to pledge that our inclusion in this process is for the good of the country.
We are always here to help in other ways by sharing the experience and knowledge of what's worked in other countries. But in terms of, could not be happier if Nigeria gets to the point where it's generating enough of its own revenues in a way that's actually helping create the space for private investment, for families to flourish, and does not need to come to the World Bank for financing. So one other thing that I thought was really important in how the mandate of this committee was set up is that it's not just about tax and revenues, it's really about inclusive growth, but also about fiscal policy in general, which means about the spending side.
Our Renewed Hope initiative, the pet project of Nigeria's First Lady, has continued to draw needed support from key stakeholders, with female deputy governors in the country and the Bank of Industry being the latest bodies to seek collaboration. Our State House correspondent NTAi now reports.
With a clear interventionist agenda in 5 focal areas covering agriculture, health, education, economic empowerment, and social investment, the Renewed Hope initiative of Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has expectedly struck the right chord with many international and local organizations who have pledged support for its actualization. The visit of the female deputy governors to the office of the First Lady is for a similar purpose. Leader of the delegation and Deputy Governor of Ogun State, Noimot Salako Oyedele, who led 3 of her colleagues from Ekiti, Kaduna, and Plateau States on the courtesy visit, says they are united in their resolve to contribute their quota to national development and would align with the initiative to achieve set goals in the area of needed investment in women and children.
Ensure that future generations of Nigerians are healthy, educated, and productive. The health and nutrition of under 5s, the quality of compulsory basic education for our children, and skills acquisition and empowerment for our youth must be a priority. We are confident that with your strong leadership and support, positive change is not only possible, but inevitable.
Happy to receive their support, the First Lady says the initiative is counting on their technical input for the successful implementation of its programs, particularly in the areas of health and nutrition of under 5 children in the states.
I always believe that when we touch one life at a time, it goes a long way. Only that the life you touch, you just have to encourage the life to touch another, because we cannot take everyone all at once. But whatever it is, I can assure you that I'm also determined, and with your help and support, and I think, the future is quite bright.
So why are we here also? We want to discuss how we can be of support to that program.
Earlier, the First Lady had granted audience to the management of the Bank of Industry, led by its Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Oluka Odikpiton, which was at the State House to explore areas of partnership with the initiative.
We are looking at the more vulnerable, the ones that really need help to stand. And such people don't have collaterals to give to the bank, so we have that.
With areas of mutual interest in women empowerment to be explored, the bank is willing to fast-track the implementation of the programs of the initiative by making available some of its platforms and database. In the State House, NTAi, NTA News.
Now, Senate has transmitted to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu the list of 45 confirmed ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, Senate, Senator Abdullahi Gumel, while briefing the press on the development, also commended the Senate for suspending recess to screen and confirm the nominees.
They were ready to come on board of the renewed hope of the President. The President is free from today to swear in the the ministerial nominees and give them portfolios so that the government can get going.
On the assigning of portfolios, Senator Gumel explained that it is the prerogative of the president, stressing that all the confirmed ministers are persons with proven track record of excellence. Now, the African Free Trade Zone Agreement has been identified as the pivot toward unlocking the fortune of Africa. Some legal practitioners stated this at the ongoing 2023 African Bar Association Conference in Pretoria, South Africa. And Delia Atumbi of our Judiciary Desk now reports.
The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is a legal instrument encouraging and promoting economic activities, including movement of goods and services among state parties. The intendment of the legal instrument is to ensure African countries trade among themselves without let or hindrance. Available statistics have shown that the African Free Trade Area is the world's largest free trade area, connecting 1.3 billion people across 55 countries who are members of the African Union. To show the commitment of the state parties to this legal instrument, 54 out of 55 countries have signed the agreement. One of the latent motives of the agreement is to create a single market for goods, services being facilitated by the movement of persons as a way of deepening economic interaction on the continent. The legal instrument also promotes the Pan-African vision of evolving an integrated, prosperous and peaceful Africa as stipulated in Agenda 2063. As a way of promoting prompt resolution of disputes, the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement establishes a mechanism for the settlement of disputes.
The judiciary that the business people who will be involved want is a judiciary that has integrity. It's a judiciary that is competent. It's a judiciary that has experience in their fields. Business people don't want people who are going to learn on the job. They want people who are ready because they've got businesses to run and they lose money when there are delays. So it is important, therefore, that all preparations be made, but it is important that the business community invests in our strong judiciary.
A whole new opportunity has been provided. How can we grab it and make it work better for all? The first thing is knowledge of its design and what is expected from it being already in force.
Participants at the ongoing 2023 African Bar Association Conference are of the view that political stability, judicial independence, and harmonized policies in tandem with African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will go a long way in boosting multilateral trade on the continent. From Pretoria, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
Now joining us live via Zoom from South Africa is a legal practitioner, Samson Osage, who will talk more on the ongoing 2023 African Bar Association Conference in Pretoria, South Africa. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure having me on this program.
Thank you so much. Now, the African Continent Free Trade Area Agreement is a legal instrument with several objectives. Now, what are these objectives as enshrined in Article 3 of the agreement?
Thank you very much. First of all, let me state that the African legal community has thought it wise to explore the legal profession within the context of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which aims to integrate the African continent for the purpose of socio-economic development. Now, the specific objectives of the AFCTA include the enhancement of competitiveness of services through economies of scale and reduced business costs. It also includes the promotion of sustainable development in accordance with the Sustainable Development Goals. It aims to foster domestic and foreign investment and to accelerate efforts on individual development to promote development on regional value chains and to progressively liberalize on industrial development and promote development of regional value chains. Now, the essential ingredients or elements of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is to create a single market for the African continent for the purpose of removing all the barriers to free trade and enhancing a common currency and a common customs union that will ensure free movement of goods and persons and free investment atmosphere for corporate organizations, and to ensure that investments are carried out in the African continent as one economic unit for the purpose of economic development. And this is without prejudice, to the various economic regional units that each of the countries may belong.
Okay, just a quick one here before I let you go. The GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollars is involved. Now, what's your advice to Africa on the quick takeoff of the project?
Well, the Africa continent plays host to about 1.2 billion persons, among the various countries, particularly when you take into account the about 54 countries within the African Union. And that is by no means a very large.
It appears we're having some network issues there. Can it?
And that are waiting to be harnessed if only African countries come on stream in order to have this done. With the kind of volume of the GDP, economic opportunities and economic programs that can go on within Africa, it boasts to be a very huge economy.
Well, at this point, we apologize, but it seems the network won't let us go. Thank you so much, Samson. Now, moving on, Niger military leaders have appointed a new prime minister as the United States backs efforts by West African countries to restore constitutional order in that country. Uche Ugochukwu tells us more.
The military head of state in Niger Republic has appointed the country's former Minister of Finance, Ali Mohammed Zain, as the new prime minister. Niger's former president, Mamadou Tanja, appointed Ali Zain cabinet director in 2001, then finance minister in 2002, to turn around the economic and financial situation in the country. Zain was finance minister until Mamadou Tanja was overthrown in a coup d'etat in 2010. 58-year-old Ali Zain, an economist, was once a resident representative of the African Development Bank in Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, and Gabon. In the meantime, the United States Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, says diplomacy is the preferred way to resolve the political crisis in Niger. This was after a talk between a U.S. envoy, Victoria Nuland, and the representatives of the military. Victoria Nuland, who is the acting Deputy Secretary of State, met with Niger's military leaders on Monday to push for reversal of the coup, but made no headway. Blinken, however, refused to confirm a possible withdrawal of U.S. soldiers from Niger. However, heads of states and governments of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, are preparing for a summit on Thursday to discuss their standoff with the Niger junta, which defied an August 8 deadline to reinstate ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. The possibility of military intervention is expected to top the agenda. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. We take a short break now. The news continues in a moment. Just stay with us. The 2023 Breastfeeding Week has ended in Nigeria, with the Federal Ministry of Health leading partners on enlightenment campaigns to workplaces in line with the theme of this year's celebration. Basi Taikwan reports that the campaign also featured a road walk along major streets in Abuja.
Making breastfeeding work is the global theme, while Nigeria's theme is enabling breastfeeding, making a difference for working parents.
When you breastfeed a child for 6 months exclusively, the immunity of that child is built against any sicknesses, any diseases, any infection. The child will get all the antibiotics, all the things that he needs to survive life.
The need for adherence to the 6 months maternity and 2 weeks paternity leave for nursing parents also re-echoed.
And those are the things that we're promoting. And we also want the workplace to consider these things in developing specific breastfeeding policies that promote breastfeeding in the workplace and enables mothers to breastfeed in the workplace, because a lot of the population of women we have are working mothers.
The message to take home from this year's breastfeeding week is: a child should be put to the breast after an hour of birth. Breastfeeding should continue till 6 months before gradually introducing the baby to normal meals alongside breastfeeding for 2 years. Basi Taikwan, NTA News.
Now joining me in the studio is the Country Director, Nutrition International, Osita Okonkwo, to talk on the breastfeeding week that has just ended. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the 2023 breastfeeding week has ended. What should be the takeaway for mothers?
Yeah, I think for this particular year, the focus was on ensuring workplace policies that are friendly to nursing mothers to be able to breastfeed their children after birth and when they have returned to work. Like you know, there is a push to ensure that pregnant women who have delivered safely and has a baby, nursing a baby, is allowed to spend at least 6 months at home with paid job, you know, and then be able to breastfeed the child exclusively for 6 months. We happen to see that in Nigeria, this doesn't happen in most places, so that in Nigeria, we have 29% of pregnant women, or rather, nursing mothers, breastfeeding their children exclusively, which is far below the expected 70% by the World Health Organization estimates. So we want to ensure that our nursing mothers are allowed to, you know, have access to their babies even when they return to work after their maternity leave, to still continue to breastfeed. It is expected that breastfeeding should be at least exclusively for 6 months, and then up to 1 year, mother could also breastfeed the child, and sometimes, you know, even up to 2 years, you know, depending on the ability of the woman to do so. But where you have a workplace policy that don't allow the woman to return to work and have access to her baby and could be able to breastfeed, or when the woman is at risk of losing her job because she's giving birth, or when she's meant to return to work even before 4 months of delivery, because she may be not be paid for the leave and may not be able to return her job, is unacceptable. So we want to see that every nursing mother has the chances to be able to breastfeed exclusively.
Okay, in that regard, let's look closely at the 6 months maternity leave. What should be done, you know, to ensure adherence, especially in the private sector?
Yeah, you know, government policies oftentimes may not be implemented effectively. So the government needs to monitor those policies and also provide incentives for private sector to enable them to, you know, provide that enabling environment for mothers to breastfeed. When we mean enabling environment means that there may be some element of incentives given to private sector in the form of tax relief or rewards for those who have been able to support nursing mothers to return to work and also retain their job and be able to breastfeed, provide breastfeeding corners even in their workplaces that will enhance the ability of the mother to breastfeed. So we want to encourage government to support the private sector whichever way is possible to ensure that this is done, and that nursing mothers are not allowed to lose their job because they have given birth, and that when they have put to bed, the mother is also allowed to have adequate time with the baby. We recommend 6 months minimum for maternity leave that is paid. So she don't have to lose her source of income because she has given birth and be forced to return to work and not have access to her baby.
Thank you so much, Osita Okonkwo. Thank you so much for your time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, moving on now, the place of national training on pesticides usage in cocoa and in the value chain of cocoa production cannot be overemphasized. In view of this national in view of this, the National President, Cocoa Farmers Association of Nigeria, Mufutau Olayinka Abolarinwa, said a workshop is scheduled tomorrow in Akure, Ondo State. That the workshop aimed at upscaling the skills of cocoa farmers in Nigeria in the effective use of pesticides in cocoa production and post-harvest storage will hold at International Cultural and Event Center, the Dome, Parliament Road, Akure, Ondo State at 10 a.m. With the theme, Safe and Effective Use of Pesticides in Cocoa Production and Post-Harvest Storage, the workshop seeks to empower stakeholders with adequate knowledge on how to get the best out of cocoa production and value chain to place the sector on the path of growth and revenue generation for the farmers and the country. And next, let's have a look at weather prospects. This is where the news ends on NTA International. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Justin Bemui, and Taiwo Ozoma has been the sign language interpreter. And we'll say bye for now.